What Lies Beneath was released in 2000. This is directed by Robert Zemeckis. It's written by Clark Gregg, and we have a cast including Michelle Pfeiffer as Claire Spencer and Harrison Ford as her husband Norman. And this has potential, but the execution is not great. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen, and there were some good moments, but in general, it's not a good film. This is a horror film about a woman, Claire, who starts to experience some strange, potentially supernatural things, and it's all about trying to work out what's going on. And I don't really want to say too much more than that because I don't want to give away anything at all in case you do decide to watch it. I realise I'm not going into a lot of detail, but basically the narrative has some interesting moments, but there is so much fluff. There is so much padding in this that the film is about 2 hours, and they could have told the story in an hour and 10, maybe an hour and 20 minutes. There is so much garbage in this. That means it slows down so much that it's hard to feel engaged in the film. So the narrative has potential, but it would need to be handled much better. With regards to the horror aspect, no, it's not scary. There are a couple of jump scares, but they are few and far between, and obviously because of the great and unnecessary length of the film, the horror elements are so spread out that there is so much time to come back down. Horror films work best, not when it's horror after horror after horror, but when you have a horror element and you only get a little bit of time to calm down before the next one comes along. If they're spread out so much, the heart rate drops back down, and it means that the next scary element might be a little scary, but it's not that effective. So the horror aspect was handled very, very poorly as well. The performances are fine, but Claire is exceptionally insufferable. I absolutely hated her as a character. I didn't agree with any of her actions at all. Norman is not necessarily an unlikable character. I guess I was pretty indifferent to that character. So unfortunately, it doesn't work well. The narrative is a mess. It's very badly handled. Absolutely had potential as a story, but the execution is horrific. The horror aspect is basically not there. There are a couple of moments that are maybe a little intense, but they are so few and far between that they're not effective at all. The characters are either boring or unlikable. The performances are fine. Unfortunately, What Lies Beneath is not a good film. It could have been really compelling in the right hands, telling the story in a better, more effective way. It could have been really good. I don't know if it ever would have been amazing just based on the narrative, but it had potential to be an interesting story, and the horror elements could have been there. Sadly, the execution is terrible, and What Lies Beneath is not one that I'd say is worth the time at all.